Hi, we're going to do reading for for Thursday, March 11th. We're going to do reading for Thursday, March 11th. You are going to need your big reading books right now. And we are going to turn to page 126. Your big reading books, and we're going to turn to page 126. Meet the insects. Meet the Insects, 126 in your big reading book. Again, this is reading for Thursday, March 11th. Okay, meet the insects. We can find insects all around the globe. Insects can be lots of shapes, sizes, and colors. There are more insects than any other kind of animal, so an insect is considered an animal. How can you tell if a bug is an insect? Read on to find out. So an insect has to have certain things. Okay, by the way, this genre is nonfiction. Non means not, fiction means false, so not false. So this is going to be true. Read about what insects can do. How can you tell if a bug is an insect? Read on to find out. The body of an insect. All insects have 6 legs and 3 body parts. It cannot be an insect unless it has 3 body parts and 6 legs. Insects have no bones. The outside of an insect's body is hard. It protects the insect's body. Most insects have antennas and wings. Not all have wings, but most do. So we have body and protects. They don't have bones, but they have an outer skeleton, or it's not really bones, but it's a hardening outer body, a hard outer body. I think it's called an exoskeleton. Most insects have antennas and wings, so it has 3 body parts. It has the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And it has 6 legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this bug has 2 antennae. So in order to be an insect, it has to have 3 body parts and 6 legs. Insects can look totally different from other insects, but they have to have 3 body parts and 6 legs. You already know the answer to this. Are spiders insects? Nope, because they have 8 legs, right? They are arachnids. Okay, insect senses. Insects use their senses to find food. Senses. So you have 5 senses. You have hearing, eyesight, smell, taste, and touch. Those are your 5 senses. Well, insects use their senses to find food. A fly does not smell with its nose. A fly smells with its antenna. It tastes with its feet. That's why flies like to land on food, because they taste it with their feet. So when they land on you, they're tasting you. Insects do not see the same as we do. Many insects have more than 2 eyes. A grasshopper has 5. It has an eye on the end of its antenna, 2 eyes here, and 1 eye right in the middle, towards the back of his head. Why do you think insects have all those eyes? Yeah, so they could see all around them to make sure they're not going to get eaten, right? Okay, fun insect facts. Some ants can lift 20 to 100 times their own weight. This ant lifts a leaf. A dragonfly can fly 22 to 30 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. Termites build big mounds. They can be up to 30 feet high. So ants are really strong, dragonfly is really fast, and termites are very, they build high mounds, 30 feet high. Insects are amazing. What amazing thing could an ant do in this story? It can lift things that are up to 100 times their own weight. That's amazing, isn't it? Because ants are so small, so how could they lift something so heavy? Yep, that's amazing. Okay. All right. You might want to read that a few times, guys, okay? I would read that several times tonight. All right, the next thing we're going to do is in your turn practice book. It's page 191, Eve and Pete. Can you tear that out, fold it in half? We're going to read it, we're going to answer questions, and then we're going to do a little bit more work. Okay? So I need you to go to Eve and Pete. In your turn practice book. Mine up here is not turned right, so I'm just going to use this, okay? Eve and Pete. Okay, we're going to read it. Pause me and get ready. Eve and Pete. Eve and Pete were pals. They flew and flew, high and low. They had so much fun together. They look like bees, don't they? Eve and Pete were pals. They were friends. They flew and flew, high and low. Flew, EW says ooh. High, the GH is silent, but the I says I. And OW says oh. They had so much fun together. Okay, page 2. Then one day, Pete said, "It's getting cold. We need to find a tree. We need to sleep." "Let's look for one," said Eve. They don't want to be cold. They spotted a huge tree. There were lots of bugs inside. "Hi, stay with us," the bugs cried. "You will be warm here." That cried, we changed the Y to an I before we added ED. Well, that's nice. They're going to invite Eve and Pete to stay with them. Hey, on the back, page 4. Eve and Pete slept in the tree. One warm day, the bugs woke up, so they hibernated. It was spring, so Eve and Pete said goodbye. They flew up to the sky. Okay, we are going to do the next page in the Your Turn Practice book, page 193. Circle the words that answer each question and write the words. I'm going to read you the questions, but not anything else. You're going to do this by yourself. The story characters are, circle the word and write it. Eve and Pete needed to circle the word and write it. 3, Eve and Pete found a huge, circle the word and write it. When spring came, they, circle the word and write it. So do this page and upload it to your teacher. Okay, pause me and finish. And we have another page to do on the back of that, context clues. Context clues are words that help you figure out the meaning of a new word. Look for words that you know to help you figure out new words' meanings. Look in the same sentence or in nearby sentences. So, if we don't know a word in the word in dark print, or if we don't know a word, we can use clues from the sentence to help us. My boots are still damp from the rain. We don't know what this word is. I know rain is wet, right? So there we go. What does damp mean? Wet or dry? Yep, it means wet. So fill in wet. The wailing baby wants some milk. Wants milk, baby. Look at the picture too. Those are clues. Wants milk, baby. So what does wailing mean? Crying or sleeping? Yep, it means crying. Grip the string tightly so it doesn't fly away. Tightly, string, grip. What does grip mean? Try to cut or hold on to? Right, hold on to. Right. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next page. 195. 195. Long I can be made with I, Y, IGH, and IE. Kind, fry, sigh, the GH is silent. Pie, I, Y, IGH, and IE all make the I sound. Circle the word that names the picture. Look at the picture, circle the word. Look at the picture, circle the word. There's an arrow here. Look at the picture, circle the word. Look at the picture, circle the word. Look at the picture, circle the word. When you're done with that, oh, sorry. You guys don't have a picture, do you? Yours is different. Circle the word in each group that has the long I sound and then write the word. So you don't have pictures. You're going to look at the word that has I and write it. Number 2, read the words. Circle the words that have the long I sound, the word, and write it. Circle the word in each group that has long I and write the word. Okay, pause me and do that page. Okay guys, I'm getting my smart notebook up here so we can do the next part. Going kind of slow. Okay, so for phonics today, we are going to learn that if a word ends with I, we change the if a word ends with Y, we change the Y to I before we add ES or ED. So if I have the word cry and I want to change it to cries, I'm going to change the Y to I before I add ES. If I want to change it to cried, I'm going to change the Y to I before I add ED. Okay, let's do some more. Spy, she spies, change the Y to I before I add ES. She spied, change the Y to I before I add ED. So if we have a short one-syllable word where the Y says an I sound, before we add ES or ED, we change the Y to I. Change the Y to I before we add ES. Change the Y to I before we add ED. Change the Y to I before we add ES. Change the Y to I before we add ED. fried, change the Y, fries, change the Y to I before we add ES. Fried, change the Y to I before we add ED. Okay, change the Y to I before we add ES. Change the Y to I before we add ED. Okay, so we're on this page. To add endings ES or ED to a word that ends with long I spelled Y, change the Y to I. Do not change the Y to I when adding ing. So when we add ing, we still leave the Y. So we have tries, cried, fried, spying. Spying, when we add ing, the Y stays there because we don't want two I's side by side. Spying, the Y stays there. Cried, cry plus ed. This one we're going to change the Y to I before we add ed. Tries, we're going to change the Y to I before we add es. Fried, we're going to change the Y to I before we add ed. Spying, cried, tries, fried. If we add ing, we keep the Y. If we add ed to a word that ends with Y that's an I sound, we change the Y to I before we add ed. Tries, we change the Y to I before we add es. Fried, we change the Y to I before we added ed. Okay, so we'll work on that some more. Okay, so Friday, tomorrow, there's not going to be a video. But you are going to do page 197 in your turn practice book. A heading tells readers what information is in a section of the text. Okay, your teacher is probably going to Zoom with you and maybe help you with this, or you can ask your parents for help. You do not have to do the back with the draft model. You do not have to do the back with the draft model for Friday. What you are going to do on Friday is reread the big story, the Fly Guy story, and then you're going to make sure you do that workbook page, Honeybees 197, and then you're going to have a selection test to take. And it's going to be about the story, the big story Fly Guy, okay? But your teacher will tell you what to do for Friday too. It'll say Friday, no video, but they'll tell you what to do, okay? All right, so there will not be videos on Tuesday and Fridays, but we will still tell you what to do. All right? So that's all for reading for Thursday, March 11th. Okay, thank you. Make sure you read.